Simpson, this is a microphone test for our good Councilman Simpson.
All right, Mike. Just want to know if everybody can hear me.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
All right.
Oh, I can give you one. I can give you one.
At this time, the mayor will call to order the special city council meeting and workshop for March the 2nd, 2021. This time, if you would please lead us an invocation. Charles.
Yes, sir. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for being able to serve our community, Lord. We thank you for those employees that did so well in taking care of our citizens in the recent bad weather. We appreciate all you've done to bless this community, Lord. Lead and guide us to do the right and fair thing. All this we pray in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
And today's Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day to everyone. Our next item on the agenda is mayor and council community recognition and events. I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Rogers, Steve Rogers. We're going to do some recognitions for some department employees.
Well, they did good. Well, were y'all coming in at the same time,
I
huh?
feel like you guys are.
I knew y'all was coming.
To join us for prayer. For the record, before we get started, we have all of our council in chambers, with the exception of Grady Simpson, who is remote, but is with us today. So, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 3, Charles Whitaker District 4, and Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5 are all in chambers. Go ahead, Steve.
Mayor and council members, it's good to be with you this evening, and it's more a pleasure to introduce you to this motley crew behind me here. These, come on in, everybody in, come on. Come on, Henry, you'll be all right, come on. This is your water quality and water distribution and wastewater collection crew. And I say a couple of things. I want Mike to come up because, you know, he really is more of front line right now between me and these guys here. But I've known some of these guys for many, many years. These are my everyday heroes. We have police and fire and others that get a lot of recognition and honor, but these guys work behind the scenes. They work during the Super Bowl. They work on Christmas Day sometimes. They work after hours. They work holidays and all kinds of things like that. And they gladly do it, and they do a great job with what they do. Specifically related to our recent storm, I tell you this for a couple of reasons. One is we only had, if my count's right, 6 water breaks during the week-long storm. And that's a good thing because we stand on the shoulders of those before us in your seats, as well as council members, as well as my predecessor and others, Mr. Gressel, who's now gone on from this earth. These people have helped build a system and manage it and hand it off to us and entrusted us to continue to maintain our system to a point when we have a storm like we had that was unprecedented for us. We're able to manage it, keep our citizens in water, keep pressure on our system, and it takes a lot of things to do that, from elevated storage to pump station to the guys on the ground fixing leaks and all that. So I say a great big thank you to them for what they do on a day-to-day basis, and they know that from me, but I don't mind getting up here and telling you that and thanking them for what they do. I'm gonna let Mike come up and say a few things before we turn it over to you, Mayor, if that's okay.
Sure. You know, I actually thought about doing this years ago for these guys, and when I got here 7 years ago, I learned real quick that there was a lot, not a lot, because there was only a few people. Matter of fact, we had some vacancies, but I learned that the people were here were extremely dedicated and committed to making sure things were responded to and taken care of as quickly as they could. This most recent, not everybody's here. We've still got a couple of guys off because of COVID-related issues. And we've got some people that couldn't make it, a few guys. Before this weather hit, I met with a few of with Dick, with Xavier, Dustin, and Gil. Gil's not here, the wastewater treatment plant. But I met with them and I said, guys, I'm really concerned. And Dustin, I need you to take a lead and respond on a bunch of cutoffs, because I think we're going to get a lot of emergency cutoffs, which we had about 150 or so pushing it. And I said, because I'm afraid these other guys are going to be getting a bunch of main breaks to respond to. And my point in what Dustin said is, we'll take care of it. No problem. Now, as it turned out, they were all responding to the cutoffs, okay? And we also had a couple of, we had an all-night main break over there on Walnut. Those guys went till about 4 o'clock. We had another break in Westmoor, but a few days later, they were out there till about 4 o'clock in the morning and came back and finished up. But the bottom line is, first names only. Dante? Dick? Sure are you. Charlie? What are you? Getting younger here. He's mad. Connie? Okay. Terrace, a.k.a. Big Son. Another Sean. Henry. Xavier. Dustin. Tommy. And Kyle. And Newbie. He's really stepped up. This guy ain't been here long. And he did a great job. All of y'all, thank you very much. Okay. I really appreciate it. So, just briefly, I'm going to stop here in a second, but the words that come to mind, I'm going to set some of them: commitment, sacrifice, unselfish, humble. These guys are not glory hounds. They wouldn't mind if we didn't ask them to come here, okay? And the appreciation I have, also in the midst of that week, we had about 4 people out. So it was even shorter handed than the way it looks right now. And the response I'd get a lot of times with these guys, even though they're worn out, I didn't hear one complaint. And Big Son's phrase was, "It's what we do." And I really think that's a nice summary, because these guys do this every week, okay, like Steve said. And I just want to say thank you, okay? So, gentlemen, there was nothing easy about the events of last week and the weather that was unprecedented for the state of Texas and the city of Terrell. And I can't tell you from the mayor's position and from the council's position, y'all have really made us proud of the city, the staff, you, and your efforts in keeping the city moving. Again, you had unprecedented cold weather, snowy weather, it was wet, and I personally witnessed some of your crews out there, and I was in a comfortable vehicle, dry, and heater blowing, and you guys are out there wet and never failed the city once. So we commend you for that. We want to say thank you. We talked several different times on how best to recognize you. Each one of the council members had an idea, and we'll get around to that again. But please know that I certainly appreciate your efforts, your dedication to the city, and stepping up when we needed you the most. And Mike's right. You do it every day, right? You do it every day. It doesn't matter whether it's a holiday or it's your son's birthday, your daughter's birthday, your wife's birthday. You're there, you're on call, and we appreciate it so much. Does any other councilman, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I will, Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, guys, we appreciate y'all very much. And Carl, you haven't been here very long, have you? But I saw you working at the corner of Alamo and Virginia, is that right? Yeah. We had cities, and it's wrong to compare, I guess, but we had neighboring cities that it didn't go like this. Yeah. You're not thanked enough. Some of you I've known since you were that high. But, yeah, y'all just did, a tremendous job. Now, Mr. Sims, where'd you go? Oh, he's up there. Yeah. Mr. Sims, you did a good job, too. We contacted people. There were times in 45 minutes or an hour something was taken care of. And that doesn't usually happen anywhere. So, I'm usually not very serious, but today I'm serious. Y'all did an excellent job.
Anyone else?
Yes. This is Councilmember Grady Simpson here. I happen to see some of the guys out as well, and only thing I can say is basically two statements. Is one thing I know that professionals do what they're committed to, and amateurs do what they feel like doing. And I know there are probably a lot of days you guys didn't feel like going out there, but you stay on track to your commitment, and that's how you make your decisions. And I'm just telling you right now, with me, it's not unrecognized. I appreciate what you do, and you have my support, and I know the mayor and the council support, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you guys can do your job efficiently. Just stay professional, stay committed, and your awards will always go beyond what you can dream. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mayor Pro Tem?
So, guys, I think a lot of times we up here all speak as council members, but I would like to, everyone will do that here. But as a citizen, I got to tell you, as a citizen, I prayed that Encore did their job, and I prayed that we kept water. And we kept water. And I have friends around Texas that didn't have water, and I had friends that were on boil water notices for a week to 10 days. And I know that's still happening. So you were the guys I was praying for. I wasn't worried about you. That week, I bugged Mr. Sims a few times, but never about water because that was never a concern. So thank you for what you do, what you did during the storm, but more importantly, what you did to prepare for the storm, because the everyday actions lead up to handling large events in a better manner. So thank you from the citizen standpoint.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 3.
No, so, to echo some of what Tim said, throughout the week, I kept hearing from, whether it was friends or family members or just in the news, right, about all the difficulties that other communities were having. And on one side, I was like, man, we're not having as much of that, right, except those water turnoffs that we were having, and had quite a few community members that were saying, hey, telling other community members, just call. They'll come fast and they'll turn off your water, don't worry, just call the phone number. So it's always good to hear that, right, that you're being recognized as being, going after that job to get it done and protect someone's home. And on the other hand, I was feeling good that, hey, we're not like other communities and having water breaks. So I think it's certainly kind of what Mike and Steve mentioned earlier, that There have been decisions that have been made by other councils, by previous staff, current staff, and some of you that have been here for a long time, and some of our newcomers that keep the wheels turning here. And to echo Tim's point, I think we should be thankful not only for the work that you've been doing here recently throughout the storm, but every day that you get out there and do the work to keep our community with water, especially right now with COVID and with the storm that we had. So a big thank you from District 3 and also from a community member standpoint.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one last little note, and I just want to say I'm honored to work with each and every one of you. We're all on the same team, and so I thank you for your work. The other thing I would say is, you know what scares Steve Rogers? I know a thing that scares Steve Rogers, and that's when a couple of you guys out here who either have no hair or gray hair might retire soon. And I would say if you're one of our folks here and you know it in your heart, you know it, that you may be retiring in the next couple of years, you have Steve scared. And because he knows that we live and die on what you guys do out there in the field. So if you're going to retire soon, I want you to think this one simple little thing for me. Do you know somebody who is as dedicated to the city of Terrell as you do, who doesn't work for the city of Terrell right now, who you might need to kind of drag into our organization and train up? Because the culture you guys have, the way you approach your business is excellent. And that means I trust your judgment about folks who might need to come work for the city of Terrell. So be thinking that in the back of your head if you're one of these folks who have Steve worried because you might retire soon. So, again, thank you.
So we want to do a presentation of some cookies to each one of you guys. So if you'll just come through. And I wanted to, again, shake each one of you's hands personally and tell you thank you so much for your dedication to the city.
I told him to get real free.
Allison, are you doing pictures over there?
Thank y'all so much. Again, thank you for coming by today. It's really been an honor for us to be able to see you and say thank you in person. Thank you.
I did a video, but can we do a group picture?
You want to do it outside?
Hey, let's go.
You want to do it?
Let's take one here.
Of both engineering and utilities. You can never forget that we've got about a $29 million general fund budget, but we've got about a $16 million annual utility fund budget. So that's a major part of everything that we do at the City of Terrell. Steve Rogers and Mike McKeska are our leaders for that, so we appreciate them very much. Next week, we're going to have Charles Fenner and Becca with us to talk through some of their items, and then we'll be finishing up in the weeks after that. You've got a schedule in one of your agenda items later on today to take a look at the and review and kind of get on your schedule. One of the things I'll mention about that is that I also want to do some good listening at the joint meeting with the EDC and with the school district, because there may be some things in that meeting that we won't really be talking about strategic plan, but you might have some ideas during that workforce presentation or the broadband presentation on that particular topic. So I'm kind of eyeballing Dawn here. Are we doing okay with our presentation? We ready to go? Okay. The last thing I'll say related to engineering and utilities is there's a couple of slides in here that talk about our capital program needs over the next few years. And we have simply an enormous number of capital demands on our system over the next few years. You're going to see some slides about how much we've managed in our engineering department in the last 10 years. And I would say that when you see that number from Steve, just be thinking that we are liable to spend much more than that in the next 10 years on major new capital improvements. And that kind of can give you a little bit of a sense about some of the financial challenges in front of us as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Steve and let him take over.
Thank you, Mike. All right, Steve.
Thank you. Mayor, I'm gonna, Councilman Simpson, you gonna follow along with us?
Yeah, I'm going to have it
Okay.
for him in just one second.
Never mind, I'm not gonna pay any attention to you then. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, is he gonna follow along? with
Yeah, he
his own
will. I mean, he's...
pace? Okay, that's fine. All
Yeah,
right, so
I'm getting there.
I encourage questions, interruptions at any point here. Mike's gonna be here as well to follow along with me here. So as Mike Sims said, these two slides here kind of represent, I kind of just went back and took a picture of what have we done the last 8 years. So if you look back here, going back to about 2013, 2012, what have we managed through our office over the last 8 years? And I just put the projects up there that we've done. There's more than this, but this is just kind of the low-hanging fruit. That's $118 million. And that averages about $15 million a year that we manage through our office. And I say that it's not to brag, it's just there's a lot going on. There's a lot going through our office. And these are a lot of projects that are very important to the community. The point of this being a $150,000 project can take almost as much effort as a $2 million project, because of the importance and a lot of things that go into it. So it's not necessarily the value, but it's the number of projects and what they mean. The other good thing I like about this is one of the things that I'm not going to brag much, because I don't think that's what we're here for, but I am proud of the fact that our office is able to manage these projects. And to Frank's here. So Frank Hinton is our internal auditor. And one of the things I like to do is make sure that Frank's got everything he needs and that he's happy and that he sees what we're doing and that we're complying with our purchasing rules. We're doing things ethically and morally right, because that's important to me, and it permeates out throughout my department and everybody that works for me, knowing that we're going to do the right thing is the bottom line. And if there's a problem, we identify it and we take care of it. We don't sweep things under the rug. Okay, I'm going to move on again. I want y'all to interrupt at any point, please. Slide 4 is a summary of the Texas Water Development Board projects that we're doing. You approved that by Resolution 882 in 2018. And in the last 3 years, we've got some of these projects. Some of them are under construction, some of them are about to be under construction. We've done a lot of work related to this $32 million borrow that we did back 3 years ago now when we first approved. These are the projects: wastewater on the left, water on the right. We've about finished with the first project there, phase 1 of wastewater. Phase 2, which is below that, is under design, and we'll be building that later this year. North Alley is going to go to construction this summer sometime. South Alley is going to lag behind that, and we got some other issues related to South Alley we'll talk about. The utility relocations at 80 and 205 are holding up the TxDOT project there, and we are probably within, I'd say, about 90 days of bidding that project and trying to build it the remainder of the year and being ready by the first of next year to do that. The Market Center lift station is serving everything out there at Buc-ee's and the new apartments as they come online. And when we build a whole lot more out there, we're going to need a larger lift station. So we're ahead of the curve right now. That project will probably be under construction before the end of the calendar year. And then we've got some miscellaneous main replacements in the Poultry elevated tank that'll follow behind that. So right now, this is kind of the status of where we're at. We've already borrowed some money. We have quite a bit of it under contract, and out of what we got under contract, we spent a little over $6 million. So we've got a lot that's just kind of sitting there ready for us to start spending, and we'll have about 3 to 4 projects under construction by the end of the year, and a lot of this money will start going out the door. We'll do another borrow. I know after October we will. We're going to need to.
We're looking at a couple, one on each side this year, this summer, and then another one probably in the fall.
We'll need to do another small borrow this year, and we'll do a larger borrow after October 1st of that $32 million.
So for clarity, when you say on both sides, you're talking about water and
Drinking
wastewater?
water.
Well, you got what's called clean water.
Okay.
You got what's called clean water and drinking water. Clean water is wastewater funds.
Okay.
Drinking water, it gets real complicated in their system, but that's a good question, Mayor. Okay, in our current utility capital reserve, UCR, we have these projects laid out here. We have our AMI project, which we're about to bring you a contract, probably if not in March, probably in April at the latest, for an AMI contract to replace all of our water meters in our system. We got that figured into our current debt load right now, and we're ready to borrow that money. That's in what Jason Hughes talked to you about, I guess, a couple of weeks ago or last week when he was here. We've got our current community development block grant project, which is sanitary sewer on Blank Street, that we're about to award a design contract on in the next few weeks, that you'll be taking action on. We'll get under design and build that later this year. Boone Street is a project that's very important to all of us. It opens up about 9 residential lots for development when we get this done. We have some pay-as-you-go money. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. We have the development partnerships, and this is a way we're funding some things that we have through our different development partnerships, such as some things we have with Camden, the Ted Zeta development, and others we have around. We have an amount of money budgeted for that in there. We got some special inspections that we need in the wastewater treatment plant that are in there, and then we have June Heresy Design. That's a project that we awarded engineering on in the fall, and we're under design right now. We'll have more for you on that as we go forward. We don't have the construction dollars earmarked for that. Bachelor Creek is part of some utility relocations we have that's funded in there. We have a project we're trying to do with the RV park at County Road 305 and I-20 to extend sanitary sewer in exchange for some right-of-way, and that's a negotiation currently underway. We hope to have completed soon.
Steve, so when you talk about Bachelor Creek, for those that don't know where Bachelor Creek is, in relations to the city, it's on
Bachelor Creek's on the
west
west side of town, and it crosses I-20 about where Rose Hill Road is, and then it crosses FM 148 where we just widened the road there where the box culverts are, and it crosses 80 right behind the closed Waffle House.
Right.
We'll make sure that's clear so everybody knows where the closed Waffle House is now. It goes right behind it, and then it carries on up north. It goes east of State Highway 205, goes by the Old Country Club all the way up to Griffith
All right.
and beyond that.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we have the North Francis right-of-way acquisition, which is for the Ted Zeta Camden Homes development. We're working on acquisition for that. They've got off-site sanitary sewer to extend to that, which is going to provide sewer for them and others and allow us to eliminate a lift station at Town North that's been there for over 15 years. It's always good to get rid of a lift station in your system.
Especially that.
We've got some paving repair money that's transferred to the capital improvement fund from here, and then we have an item for maintaining retail water mains. And I'll explain what those mean. Pay-as-you-go was one of the line items. In pay-as-you-go in retail water mains, we have Boone Street. We have a need on Washington Street and on 6th Street for additional residential houses where we have limited or no utilities that we need to do short main extensions that we're going to use some of that money for. We did under retail water mains, we did a repaired 1801 North Francis. That's right just north of Town North Drive, where we've had multiple water main ruptures near a convenience store up there, and we decided to go in there and replace some pipe, so we could quit having to spend so much time fixing those. And then we want to do some Eastmore water main design to get this 10-inch. We have a 10-inch water main that's very old. It's in Moore Avenue, and it starts down by the skating rink, if you know where that is, on the far east end of town. And it's in the pavement all the way to about First Street. And so anytime this main ruptures, we have to shut Moore Avenue down, we have to do traffic control plans, we have to do paving repairs for TxDOT. It's a bad situation we have. So in chunks, we want to continue to move this water main out of the roadway and replace it, plus upsize it to a 12-inch. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving until I get questions here, so I'm,
Actually,
yes, ma'am.
the Washington Street and Sixth Street projects, can you remind me what those are about again?
We have residential development that is trying to occur in those two areas right now where we cannot issue building permits because we don't have any or adequate utilities in those areas. So what we have in like Washington Street, we have an old water main that was extended from Main Street over to serve a house. And then there's an empty lot that wants to build, but we really don't have adequate water service for it. So we want to do a short main extension there to provide adequate water and flow for those areas so people can build residential houses on empty lots. Same thing on Sixth Street. That's been a situation where nobody can afford to extend the mains by themselves, so we want to participate with the developer to possibly open up 2 or 3 lots on Sixth Street for development off of Lawrence, between Lawrence and Main.
And I'll just say that that's a recurring theme, right? So what we've been trying to do is engineer it 1 year, pay for it as a project to construct the next year. And so Boone is ahead of the pack and is the one that's furthest along. And then we'll get started on engineering on Washington and 6 later on after that. And as we hear from developers about locations where they just want to do small scale stuff, 2 or 3 houses, and we can possibly find ways to do little improvements in our system, that's what we do.
This is part of why we put that money in there, so we can work with developers to extend mains where we need to so that they can develop properties that have been undevelopable in the past because we've never had a fund to draw from to do these short, small projects.
As I'm thinking about different buckets of money, versus pay-as-you-go, retail water main, different line items. How are we separating funds from, this new bucket of money that, or now that we've put it in a different line item for future developments, to help future developments in areas that it's needed, and then funds to help with the water growth lines that are happening?
Well, again, some of those are layered into this discussion. So if you go back to the Boone Street, that's where we have, again, 9 empty lots that we can't develop on because we don't have adequate water and sewer there. And so we've done a combo situation where we're able to do some drainage work, use some stormwater funds, use some utility funds. We're going to be able to fix the drainage in that area, extend water and sewer of adequate size, and get the street where it'll drain right, where we can build 9 houses over on Boone Street. And it's helping existing areas. The June Heresy is fixing an existing water main problem that keeps rupturing all the time. So we have different things layered in there where we're constantly trying to upgrade our system and keep it strong so that when we get into a week of bad winter weather, it gets down to 0 degrees. Like we just had. You want your system to hold up, and we're continuing to make those improvements that armor our system, but we also have pockets of areas that need development. That's why we put the money in there for that maintained retail water mains. If we have a situation like 1801 North Francis, where we have continual problems with ruptured water mains, we want to go out there and fix it and solve the problem. And that's what we did. We went out and did a small scale project, fixed a situation that's had multiple ruptures on it over the years. And now we don't have a business that's constantly disrupted because of that, and we have the same thing with residential lots as well. So we're layering in different things in these things here to do. The Washington and 6th Street are some areas that need main extensions, or we're just going to have vacant lots that can't build houses on them, and it's kind of infill, and it's just where areas have developed without adequate water and sewer over the years.
One way to
When
look
I
at,
think about your presentation, Steve, I should only be thinking main water lines, not storm water, sewer, because that's going to be Glenn's part of the presentation, but mainly thinking about the main water lines and what we've identified to address through the funding, and then also that, you know, the new line item that we didn't have previous years ago, where there's an opportunity to help with future development.
Well, and again, that's not, so part of that's layered into here, again, with the development partnerships, that money
Right.
is used to extend some water and sewer mains that are going to serve new areas and things that we have under development partnerships. The North Francis right-of-way acquisition, again, is extending sanitary sewer out to feed 600 new homes that are going to be built out there at camp. So we have all that layered into this. And then again, under this, the East Moore, this is your bread and butter of taking an old water main that needs to be replaced and moving it and upsizing it. And these are the things we do. So we have some of that layered in here with old mains, and then we have that layered in with new development. And all that's competing with one another under this $2 million that we have in the UCR.
And I guess I'd say it like this. Every year, we're going to present to you a set of recommendations from Steve and Mike McCaskill. And the basic idea of that recommendation is going to be along the lines of saying, okay, what are we putting into the utility capital reserve this year? Utility capital reserve is an annual transfer from your utility fund into a capital bucket. And within that, Steve and Mike are trying to pick projects for you and make recommendations to you about the best thing to do. A very important part of it, and really the bread and butter of a lot of our work over the last few years, has been what that East Moore project is, right? You got a problem in the system. We know that if we'll fix a problem in our system proactively, it won't be a major issue some year in the future, right? It's really bad for us if that 10-inch water in East Moore breaks. It leaks now, so if it breaks and it's a really bad break, that could be a very catastrophic event for us. So they're going to prioritize that, and they're going to say, hey, let's get that in there, let's get that fixed, and let's manage that in that way. Likewise, we're going to listen to people who want to do what I would call small-scale infill development. I already have a road, I already have, water fairly nearby, I have sewer fairly nearby. I've got most of the stuff I need for development, but there's just a gap in the system, or maybe an antiquated thing in the system, or something in the system that just never got built for some strange reason, okay? And that's what he's calling those small-scale retail water mains, okay? And as we see those, and we have opportunity to do those, we get in there and we want to make those improvements, partly because it's good to build new houses in an infill area, but also partly because it helps the homes around there have a better and more reliable water service, because we're normally making a connection or a loop or something that helps the overall system. And then that third category of developer partnerships, that's something where we just work together on a regular basis and say, okay, this year we seem to have several new large greenfield projects coming forward. So whether it is something related to a project on Rose Hill or something related to a project on North Francis, whatever it might be, as we negotiate with developers, we often have something where we need to say, okay, well, I need a pool of money to work with there. So that development partnership dollar amount, it can do everything from helping to do grease traps and water mains for the Anderson building, and it can do, other major things like making sure that as a developer, and this is the North Francis example, as they not only build the sewer line they need for their development, we can look at that and say, you know what, it would be short-sighted of us as a city to have them build strictly only what they need for their development. When that line goes in, that sewer line goes in, it makes all the sense in the world to enter a development agreement that says we have the right to upsize it as necessary. So if the developer's calculations say it needs to be a pipe of one size, Steve can look at that and say, you know what, to accommodate growth in the future, let's go ahead and pay for that to be the next size up of pipe, okay? Instead of a 12-inch, I'll do a 16-inch. Instead of this, I'll do that. And those are decisions that Steve can make, and having a little bit of money available in that fund is a great long-term expense, because that really saves us money in the future going back and having to redo stuff that wasn't sized for additional growth in the future. So that's a lot there, but my main point is it is an annual budget proposal from staff that you see every year that lays those out about how much each year. And then you should expect that to change each year.
Yes, Steve,
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate the forward thinking with all this, because I know you've had some drainage pipe issues in my district, and to be thinking like the next size up in terms of pipes, I think that's brilliant. I love it.
Yes, sir. Crisp and clean.
Yes, sir, crispy clean.
Crispy clean. I got you. All right, here we go. All right, I'm on slide 10 now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some other projects outside of what we just covered. And again, I don't want to, we're going to come back to you on some of these with more details at a later date, so I don't really want to get bogged down in all this tonight, but I just kind of want to cover them and be brief, and certainly want to answer any questions, but we're going to come back to you some of these in a lot more detail. So we applied for funds in 2011. We were notified in 2014 that we had gotten a grant, and in 2017 they actually started spending money on it. And finally, it looks like this summer or sometime before long, we will start the project down at Elmo on the dam rehabilitation project. That's a $15 million construction project, which I think at the end of the day will be out of pocket $300,000 on it. And that's a great thing for the city to have and to use as that is a great project for our citizens, even though they don't quite understand the use of it and what it means. It's just good for our community. Temple Street, we're going to do we're going to come back to you and have a detailed briefing on this, but we're using some funds in a partnership we have with Builders First Source to improve Temple Street. We're going to come back to you and have a detailed briefing on that and talk a lot more about that in detail in the coming weeks and months as we get that project closer to ready to roll out. North Blanche, I know this is again something that's been discussed before, and we are looking at, remember we've got to take this bite of the apple one at a time here. We're looking at North Blanche and the section right off of 80 where the drainage all comes to and goes under State Highway 34 and draining it up to about Bryn Street, trying to figure that corridor out so we can get our sanitary sewer project through there. We're making progress on that. We'll have more to report to you on that going forward. There's other sections of Blanche that we need to talk about, and that's a much more, again, detailed discussion. It needs more time than what we have tonight. So I'm going to keep moving.
So I'll just kind of emphasize for council, I want you to look at those first three projects and think, okay, those are things that by the time I get to the end of FY24, we're going to be able to look at those things and say, man, we did a lot of work there. That was successful. That was terrific. We're not doing the details in each of those projects tonight because they're fairly in-depth, complicated projects, and I'd have the mayor here until 10 p.m. if we did that. But rest assured, those are major elements of our 3-year strategic plan to get those three tackled.
I'm going to cover these again in a little bit, but under stormwater, we have 3 projects that we're currently working on right now that are in the budget. That's Colquitt at Lovers, and that's an intersection project and a situation where we got some traffic safety issues we're going to work on and drainage, all that's associated, and we're working on that right now with engineers. Same engineers working on Bachelor Creek between 205 and the golf course entrance is Bachelor Creek where it crosses there. We're going to do some improvements there. And then we have a project that we've had a lot of problems with 9th Street about where Elizabeth comes into it with standing water there. And we've got a drainage ditch that goes behind the houses on Griffith, in front on Griffith, that flows all the way down to Grace Lane and beyond. And we've got an undersized culvert at Grace Lane. And we're working on this right now. I'm about to send out 11 letters, or went out in today's mail, to owners affected by this. And we'll be doing a project there to try to improve the drainage in that area there. So if you hear from anybody, the best thing to do is to send them to us, let us. I've given them my contact info, ask them to call me, but if you're getting any questions about it, let us handle the details of it if you don't mind, because we got maps and all kinds of stuff, and I can put you in the loop on that if need be, but that's a project that's ongoing right now. Okay, I'm gonna shift gears here and go back to some kind of, we're getting our eyes up, looking ahead now, because I've got FY '22, FY '23, and I'm saying, what are we gonna be doing going forward? And some of this gets back to what you were talking about, Mayrani, but it also deals with growth and development around us. So remember, we have to respond to our own growth and needs internally. We have to respond to old stuff that needs to be improved. And we have to respond to the growth pains of being in a growing community. So for instance, State Highway 205 is getting widened through Terrell, actually all the way to Rockwall and all the way to beyond, all the way up nearly to Wiley. 205 is going to get widened. And that puts pressure on us because we have utility relocations associated with that we have to spend money on. And so looking ahead, what are we seeing going ahead? We got phase 2 wastewater treatment, and we got that funded in our, mostly in our Texas Water Development Board project, but we found out since we did phase 1 and phase 2 that we're underfunded by $4 million in that, and that's part of what we've talked about with this borrow coming up soon with Jason Hughes. We have the State Highway 205 utility relocations that are going to come up, and that's a significant project for us to do. That's over $4 million of sewer and water improvements that we have to fund. And even though the Bachelor Creek Sewer is the #1 project on our capital improvements plan and our impact fee, so that's a good project to do, and it's coupled with a highway expansion, and so those are good things. But it does put pressure on us to spend money on projects that we may not want to right now, but we have to because we have to get ahead of the widening project. There's a 16-inch gap in our water main system along 205 from about where Encore is, their facility there just north of the Cornerstone Baptist Church, up a little ways there. We're going to try to make that a grant project. We'll talk more about that going forward there. The June Heresy project that I talked to you about, we're doing design now, but the construction money is $1.2 million, and we need to fund that. If we're going to do the East Moore 10-inch water main upsize and relocation, the first bite of that is we're including the design in this current year's UCR. But in order to build it, it's a 7-figure number, and it's $1.2 million in this first bite, and we've got to look ahead and find the money to fund these projects. We have an upsize to our west side pump station that needs to be done. This is driven by a lot of different things, but it's something our growth is pushing us to do, is to upsize our pump station. We have to build a new ground storage tank, and we have to increase our pumpage at Pump Zone that we already have planned for at our pump station.
So Steve, let me stop you real quick.
Yes, sir.
So it's a lot of money, as you can see, but it's about planning for the future and development for our city. You've got to be able to move people throughout your community if you expect good growth. And so some of this money on the 205 expansion and relocation over utilities has to be done. I know it's hard for some council members to say, hey, this money isn't being spent in my district, but the whole city's going to benefit by some of these projects. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, when I talk about grant projects, again, we have our current project that we talked about a while ago at Blanche Street, and that's a $500,000 grant. And we were notified in November that we had received the grant, and we got the paperwork in order, and we expect to award design probably this month sometime very soon. And again, it's a sewer main on North Blanche, and there's a section on High, and it goes up to North Delphine. Then we have the GLO grant that we submitted for drainage. That's $7 million. We submitted that in October of 2020. There's a huge amount of competition for a little bit of money, and we're going to remain hopeful and positive, but it's going to be really tough to get that money. But if you don't try for it, you'll never know. So we haven't heard anything yet. We don't know when they're going to tell us yay or nay, but we're going to remain hopeful till we hear something different on our big drainage project. That would be a great project for this community if we're able to get the money. And then the last one down there is a grant application we're going to come to you with probably in the next month or so. And that's that fill-in water line piece that I just showed you on State Highway 205. We got to do the design work on it, and these projects take 2 to 3 years from beginning to end. We only get $350,000 for that grant because they've reduced the amount from $500,000 for the sewer project we got in 2019 to $350,000 for the current grant cycle. They change it every year. So some other current develops, and these put a lot of time and pressure on our department to respond to these, and then some of these are intertwined with some of the projects you've seen. Camden Homes, we talked about some of that. Some of the projects we're doing are related to that. The Woodlands, by doing work 15 plus years ago and even 10 years ago, we have a lot of adequate utilities out there to serve the Woodlands. So by things we did years ago, we're able to serve the Woodland. There's not a big utility impact related to that. So every project is different on how they impact us, but planning that went on years and years ago has helped us to get the Woodlands adequate utilities out there at that corner and get them to build. That's a great thing to have in your pocket to use for development. The venture apartments are about to open, the first building or two, and they'll all be open in the next few months out there behind Ross on Crossroads. And then in the Crossroads area, we're working with the new GM dealerships that you've already had approvals on. There's an out parcel building that's been built there that we hope gets finished soon so that we can have some more services and eating places out there as well. And then there's some pad sites out there that you've already heard some things that are coming. We think as COVID continues to decline or change going forward and the vaccinations increase, we think more now that the governor's going 100% on restaurants next week. I think you're going to see more of those start to come our way and start looking. We have some other things we're looking at as well in the Terrell Market Center area back behind Buc-ee's as well. We also have the La Quinta Hotel that will probably open. I'm going to say probably April's realistic right now for it. They're trying to get it finished up, and it's going to look really, really nice. Again, other development projects, and all these affect us in a lot of different ways. The Terrell Town Square, we're working on that, and there's a lot that's going to pour into that related to utilities, drainage, and street improvements that we'll have to manage through our department related to just providing a place for Becca to have a new office. Won't that be nice? We have an assisted living. We met with them today out in the Creekside area on Portree Road. We met with them today and had a good discussion about that, and they're making progress on that. The venture apartments are wanting to come in and build another phase 2, another apartment complex just west of the one that they're building now. And that's why we're putting in the expansion of the Market Center lift station, because when they build another apartment complex, we'll be out of capacity in that lift station. So we're ahead of the game, and we're trying to stay ahead of the game all around related to this. Builders First Source out on Temple Street is exceeding expectations in what they're doing with sales tax. This thing is really becoming a real engine for our community as far as they're moving a lot of lumber through that place. There's a lot of rail deliveries that are coming in now. They're getting multiple deliveries every week. We see this increase, and they want to do another expansion out there, and we're working with them on that right now. Greater Texas Land Resources, this is 1,132 acres. It's an orphan of the Los Lomas Mud District that's south of I-20 that's trying to develop. We're looking at obtaining a portion of the Lawrence Water Supply Corporation. We got an agreement with them we're working on as well. Working on some stuff with the Rose Hill side where we've annexed areas in and areas where we're kind of bumping up against one another. And then we have this water service that we're working on the Brushy Creek corridor, which is the corridor between Terrell and McClendon Chisholm in Hope. That's thousands of acres and we have some large acreage owners in that area, and we have McClendon Chisholm wanting us to provide service, and we've got a lot of, so all these things just bring different layers of time and effort in our department to make this work. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving here. You've heard the term complete streets, and this is growing legs here, and the first thing you're gonna see is we're going to work with the county and get some of our funds released here to do on Moore Avenue from Bowser to Dallas. This is gonna include Spur 226, which is Virginia Street from US 80 down to the Airport Road, State Highway 34 signal light, and then a couple of blocks of Virginia, that's City Street north of 80 up here to the signal light at High. And then eventually we'll spill down into City Street, Adelaide Street, South Alley. That's something you'll hear a whole lot more about in the coming weeks going forward about South Alley, about what we're doing in our Water Development Board project and other things, complete streets, and how that all meshes together with things that we're doing around it. Rochester, we've got some other projects, thoroughfares that may need to get built related to development occurring in the community, and so we've layered some of those in there for more work to be done. And then we have quiet zones. This is something funded through the county bond program we have money for. We're looking at 16 crossings right now. We're going to put together an RFQ in our office and work with the county's engineers that they have hired to try to get that out and get a consultant hired to start talking to us about quiet zones. And all those things are in the works right now in our office. So when I look at those things, I've kind of got them, Mike put this together and I give him credit for it. This is easy for me to follow. If you look at the bottom, you have construction in yellow, design in green, and studies in blue. So group the studies at the bottom, and a lot of those are going to occur this year into next year in different phases, calendar year. And these are broken up into 6-month increments here. So you take 2 of those bars and that makes a year right there. So if you look at the top from Market Center and look at the projects going down, you see that they're spilling into the calendar year 24 and what we're doing right now and things we have funded right now. We're going to have other things that are going to get added to this list that are going to continue to push that out. So I just want you to kind of see this, to have a realistic expectation of when things are done on here and to take a look at that. Okay, shifting gears now, moving to stormwater. Want to talk about it a bit? Go ahead,
I
Mike.
just want to kind of make sure that wraps up a big chunk of the presentation that is very utility-oriented and engineering project-oriented. So we're going to kind of transition now. So if you were hanging on to a water question, it would be a great time to ask that before we move on to this next chunk.
Actually, I have a question related to the South Adelaide project from High to Rochester, and being a complete streets. When do we? Does that also follow the schedule of the study
Okay.
being done in September and March?
So you said something that lost me there. So let's back up and make sure we're clear about. You said South Alley.
No. South Adelaide.
South Adelaide. Okay, I'm sorry, South Adelaide. Okay, what about it now?
So does that the South Adelaide from East High to Rochester, that's going to be complete streets. Or when we're talking complete streets, are we talking quarterly?
It's easy to answer this question on the next slide. So if you go to the next slide and you see that blue down there, so one step at a time. On the complete streets evaluation, we have $750,000 that was included in the county bond program. That $750,000 is going to allow us to do a complete street evaluation of Moore Avenue from Bowser to Dallas, Spur 226 from Moore down to Airport. We'll include the little tag part of Virginia up to High, and then we'll look at some of the surrounding roadways. So Steve's highlighted Adelaide because that's one of the primary other complete street projects that we have. But we're really including in that $750,000 the two main TxDOT roads, 226 and 80. And we are including a variety of other complete street projects that are complementary to the Town Square project. So as we do that study that's shown there in blue, we'll be able to come back to you during the middle of that. And remember, that's a paddock board item. We'll be able to kind of share that with the paddock board as we work on it and then come back from that. The outcome of that, we hope, will be that we will be able to say, okay, on 226 and 80, here's exactly what to do, okay? And then we can get an engineering firm to go run and go do that work and hopefully get a grant for it and build all of that. Meanwhile, it will also give us the input of, okay, on streets like Adelaide that are surrounding our Town Square project, what should we be doing to create a template that we can use and then repeat over and over again. So what's that template going to have in it? It's going to be basically, when you do complete streets, you're going to be doing it from building to building. Don't think about it as right-of-way to right-of-way. You think about it as building facade to building facade. That's how I plan a complete street. So that's the awning on the building, the sidewalk next to the building, the green next to the building. It's the street furniture of the bench or the trash can. It's the lighting. It's how all of that stuff looks, complete with your sidewalk. It's how you're moving water from a drainage system standpoint, and the curb or the lack of a curb, whatever else it might be. So it's really from a facade wall to a facade wall, everything that you would walk down and say, okay, that's my street. That set of recommendations is what you're doing when you're saying complete streets. So does that answer your question?
Well, let me try it a different way.
I was hoping that you would say that, when we say complete streets on South Adelaide from High through Rochester, because when I think about, and I hear Rochester, but then if we go another block down to Newton and probably a whole another block down, and we look at the condition of South Adelaide Street, especially on the edges, where the pavement used to be at, and now we have potholes. I was hoping that would mean it would address it, and then I was looking to see if that was the case, where the time frame was, if it was following the streets evaluation as it's shown on the schedule here, or some other.
Well, I think that in order to answer your question, the limits can be modified and changed. Okay? We're just taking something to give you some definition to it. We're not going to go all the way to Alamo Street on Adelaide, and we're not going to go all the way down to Virginia Street on the south end. So we're giving you some limits now. We need to extend that down. We can add that to it. The point of this discussion is really this for me. This is a marathon, not a sprint, okay? It takes time and money, and when we have the money and we have the time, we can produce a good work product, and these things are going to take time to do. So the complete street study looks at everything from trash cans to street lights to the condition of the roadway to the drainage and everything. There's a whole lot of things that pour into that, and we really need to spend more time just talking about that in a session so that we can all gain from that. So when we do the US 80, you'll find out a whole lot more about what that really means as we start, because that's when we have funded. And as soon as we get somebody under a consultant and bring them in and let them talk to you about it, you'll understand better what that really means when you're doing a complete street study or analysis.
A couple of simple things. No street's complete if it's just full of potholes. That's a simple one. No street's complete if it doesn't have some sort of pedestrian sidewalk system, right? So you can kind of put that in your mind. Then the other thing that I want to use this slide to point out is the blue for study. That's the $750,000 that we have with the county bond program funds. Your Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation has in their capital plan $2.5 million for complete streets. The complete streets projects we're going to end up with are going to cost a lot more than $2.5 million. So we want to use that $2.5 million from the paddock board as local match and try to go use that as a share of a matched project. Okay? So I can't tell you right now what that it will exactly be, but what I can tell you is sometime during that 2 years of study there, we should be finding out how far away are we away from a grant, and how can we fill in the rest of the blanks there. Steve will want to turn some of those white cells on his graphic there to green, right? So the sooner we can get any of that to design, that'd be great. Until we do the study, it's a little premature of us to say when we're going to be able to swap the design, because I got to have a study to go prove out the grant opportunity.
Okay, I'm gonna move on here so I can, we still got quite a few to cover here, but again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm gonna move to stormwater and walk through the history of the stormwater fund, just for the sake of discussion. So we started the stormwater fund in 2010, and we really started collecting after October 1st of 11. We started at $1. Our initial study said you should start at $3.75, but we didn't start at $3.75 till October of 2015. And then since then, we bumped it up a little bit, and we're now generating from what was $200,000 a year up to $1.2 million. So we're starting to get the stormwater fund to a point where it's really helping us fund some projects. So what have we done with that money? Well, there's been about $2.8 million spent on drainage improvement projects since 2011 when it was started. We specifically spent about $1.2 million on 20 what we call small projects, and these are good projects that help our public services guys reduce their workload by fixing something where they don't have to come back and clean it out, or we're helping our citizens by trying to eliminate some mosquito ponds. So there's always a health and safety element to this to try to reduce mosquito areas that are related to drainage projects if we can. There's an annual maintenance by the Public Services Department that's funded through this fund, and then some additional projects we've done. We just finished our drainage master plan, which has been great to have as a tool for developers and everybody coming in to use. And then we've got a lot of other various flood studies and other things, consultants that we've used to help us with drainage over the years. I talked to you about these first three projects earlier, about Colquitt and Bachelor Creek and Ninth to Grace, and we're working on those now. Those are all funded currently in the budget, as well as Boone Street and the drainage associated there. So we're taking those monies, are all under contract. You'll see something going forward before long on all those, and we're going to have them all done in this fiscal year, no doubt. So what is Colquitt at Lovers? Well, in our drainage master plan study, it's to really to fix some guardrail and probably widen some head walls if we can, just west of the Lovers intersection with Colquitt Road. The head walls are old and in bad shape, and they're too close to the road, and the guardrail's too close to the road, and this causes people to drive in the middle of the road, not in their lane, and this causes people to crash into things, including one another right here. And we got some sight distance here. We're going to look at this curve here. Maybe we can try to clear some trees and try to improve sight distance here. We're going to look at some options here and talk about that as we get this project advanced. The other one on Colquitt Road is down at Bachelor Creek, and 205 is right here on the left side of the map here. And again, this is just cleaning that drainage so this culvert acts properly. This is a large multiple box culvert, that the TxDOT built as an off-system project about 15 or 20 years ago, and we need to keep it clean where it drains properly to move the water through this area here. The 9th to Grace study, if you can see the map, this is 9th Street over here on the west side, this is Grace Lane in the middle, this is Griffith down here. And so we have a drainage ditch that collects water at Elizabeth and 9th and sends it down a drainage ditch under a culvert at Grace Lane and back down behind these houses that front on Griffith Avenue. And this has been this way for a long time. It's grown up. It doesn't drain well. We have some problems here at Grace Lane during some heavy rains not long ago, and we're trying to take this and improve it, and we're going to work with these citizens. So all these people that are listed on this map are getting a letter from me in the next day or so, and we're going to want to go in their yards and survey. We're going to come back to you and tell you what we think we ought to do and how much it's going to cost. We're only doing an evaluation now. We're going to do the improvements next fiscal year. I'm going to shift gears now into airport and airport capital. We have requested, we've kind of paused on the airport and not really done a whole lot. We do have a project under construction right now that's $2.5 million, of which we got CARES Act money put into our part. And we're actually only out $23,000 right now on this airport project, on a $2.5 million project. So TxDOT's taking care of us, TxDOT Aviation. We appreciate working with them. So we've asked them to help us fund some things that we need going forward. The first one is an updated master plan for the airport, a business plan, and an updated zoning ordinance for the airport. And they're excited about doing that, and they want us to fund that. They want to get that into their budget as soon as they can. You see the split of money between TxDOT and the city here. Then we have some development partnerships where we want to look at some, maybe the FBO and some box hangers and stuff out there that we want to look at to spend some of that money. We also want to maybe acquire some land around the airport, and that's what this hanger and aprons and development partnerships are all about. We'll have you a lot more details on that as we go forward. We have some other lighting, fencing, and weather station improvements that we need to do out there at the airport that we're programming in. We need to put in a new fuel farm, and then we have some more drainage improvements. We're continuing to need to do drainage improvements every time we turn around out there because the drainage is so old out there from World War II. So it's about $10 million in improvements that we're looking to do at the airport over the next 3 or 4 fiscal years. And that's it's not quite an even split there. It's about 60-40 kind of on the split of money when you kind of add them all up, tally them up. We're going to come up with $4 million to spend at the airport over the next 4 years or so.
So, Steve, let me just say, this is an opportunity for partnerships again. Some of this is just flat out money that may have to come from the city. And that's okay. We've got a great airport, but we can't expect it to be fully self-sustaining. Almost all of what we do at the airport is, but we can't do it all. I would say that our Economic Development Corporation is a potential partner in this, because some of this is some aviation development-related improvements. And then some other parts of this might actually be your tax increment refinance zone. Remember that the airport is in the TIF, and so they're a potential partner to be helping us with this as well.
Okay, I'm tired of talking. I'm going to turn this over to Mike McKeskin. He's going to talk to you about a few things.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I've got just a few slides here to cover. First thing is just highlighting, we had the guys up here, we talked about needs, and they have to have proper equipment to respond. This is a list of some of the bigger picture, more expensive things. There's also smaller equipment that we're going to be looking at, tools, things that can help them do their job better. We've been doing that the last few years, had some improvements, but one of the things that we think are going to come up over the next 3 years is requests and discussions about this list of equipment. Some dump trucks. We're working, had discussions with Glenn. He's working on that. and try to coordinate with streets so that we don't get too many units that we can share, things like that, within the fleet. Backhoe, skid steer, loaders, same kind of thing. We've replaced jet trucks. Y'all supported us replacing the jet truck, jet trailer the last few years, and some other items as well. A lot of new trucks through the lease program. It's been very, very helpful. But we're still looking at vac trailer, camera, a compactor, something to help us as we make repairs, and then go in there and try to get some little better densities when we backfill the trenches after repairs, and maybe we don't have quite as much settlement at times on those trenches. We have a smaller unit, but we're going to investigate and see if we want to request something else. Some other trailers, and then the shoring equipment, we have some, and we may look at some units that will modify that or purchase something new. So it's just kind of ongoing work. Software needs.
Hey, Mike, 30-second question. So as our stormwater system continues to grow and we put new or replace new stormwater, what tools do we have to make sure that stormwater underground stays clean? Do we have a camera system? I know we don't have a magical little robot, which we might need at some point in the future to dig out trenches underground, but do we have a camera system right now?
We have a camera, a mainline camera that we use for sanitary, and we can assist Glenn and TV in the storm to a point, depending on what the effort it takes, the size of the pipe. Our equipment really is not geared for larger diameter, and so if you get into 24, 30-inch pipe, a lot of times we have to get a company that has a unit that's really supported, that has a skid or a mount to where it gets up in the air better, and it can also transverse over any debris with larger wheels. Ours just didn't quite support it like that.
I don't want us to get to a point where we continue to add new to the system and then don't maintain, because we're guilty of that. And
Yeah.
so, okay.
Council, we've got about 10 more minutes, so go ahead,
Okay.
Mike.
On the software side, just some things that there's been some discussions about. Once we get through the AMI system, we may need to look and decide whether or not there needs to be some upgrades of billing, ties to the financial software. I think that's been being looked at by Jamarcus as well. Work management software, we have a system. There may be an opportunity to link some things together, for instance, and use the same software maybe that municipal development is doing. You could have some automated work orders initiated and things when permits come up and need new taps or meter sets and stuff. Document preservation, since we've got a lot of paperwork, and we've had discussions about whether or not we need to look at hiring somebody to come in, and then maybe a software to manage records and stuff, and then continue with our mapping efforts in GIS. Okay, on the budget, one of the things, since we're looking at the strategic plan and kind of looking ahead the next, actually 4 years within our rate model, the rate model is updated, and we've been going through that, still learning the structure of it. And one of the things that, you look at that and how's it going to affect the rates going forward? What do you look at? Well, you look at things like this. You make estimates on personnel costs, salary increases, cost as a whole, increases on the budget. North Texas is a big wild card right now. So I've plugged in estimates, and that's in discussions with Chris Eckert as well. And what's the impact of debt services? How much are we going to grow? How many new homes are we going to have? New apartment complexes, new businesses? What kind of cash do we want to maintain within UCR? Cash expenses do we want to maintain? And, do we need to keep looking at indirect costs, meaning transfers to the general fund? If those change, that impacts the utility rate, one way or the other. And then you have some other revenue sources. And then what about reserves? Do we want 60 days, 90 days, 120-day target on reserves for the utility? So when you start looking at all of these and you put them in the rate model, what does it look like? Well, right now, with assumptions that are built in, to maintain the new borrows and all of the projects. I was tired listening to Steve, looking at that whole list, and I worked on this presentation. It's like, no wonder we're busy. There's a lot going on. And so to maintain all of this, and with those estimates, it looks like we can, in the 5 or 6% range, the next few years for water and sewer, we can actually cover that debt that we're talking about and maintain cash expenses in the UCR of about $1.5 million, and with an assumption on growth, okay? And a conservative consumption on growth in houses. So that's kind of a key issue. The rate increases aren't going away. On the water side, again, North Texas, if they surprise us and jump into the 10, 12% increases a year, that number's no good. But we won't know that for the next couple of years, okay? So Steve has some stuff to cover over here.
He gave you the bad news. Water and sewer's going up every year. And that's what it's going to take for us to manage our system and grow, stay up with growth, and to improve those existing issues that we have in our system. Okay, I want to talk about personnel, and this is starting to get personal here. I've told you this before, but I'm going to keep telling you till I'm gone and not here to tell you anymore. I'm probably going to retire in 23. I'll probably leave about the summer of 23 right now. That's my current plan, Lord willing. Mike McKeska, unfortunately, is going to exit out probably in early 24. And so that leaves a void in what we're talking about here. This is our org chart for engineering. And so, obviously I'm there and Mike's here. And so if you look at the red and yellow, we've got about 9 people that we've talked to that we know, including some of these guys that came in here a while ago, that are getting of age and they want to retire. And so in the next 5 years, we see about 9 out of 33 are going to transition out. So we're going to see a big transition. One of those is probably going to be Dick Boyd, who is really leading that whole crew of people on a day-to-day basis. Dick is an awesome person. He's going to be hard to replace, but we're grooming people underneath him. Some of these youngsters we had in here are going to do a great job. We're going to have to add to what we're doing and pour resources into keeping good people doing this going forward. It's going to take, and I'm going to tell you straight up, we talked about it earlier, I know Carol talked about it, we're going to have to pay these guys. We're going to have to increase the pay for our employees. I'm not saying that selfishly for myself. I'm saying for these guys that were in here, they need more money. And that's what it's going to take to fill these voids with the kind of people that we want to see as a community going forward. Okay, so I'm going to make some quick recommendations to you to let this marinate a little bit. We need a succession plan for engineering because there's going to be so much change going on. We're recommending you start thinking about this and consider funding something in 22 if that's the direction we want to go. We need to look at it in more detail. We need to talk about it in the budget and see, do we want to double fill something and have overlap, or how do we want to do it? Do you want to roll the dice and think I'm going to come back after the end of 23 and spend any amount of time here? I don't know. But, I'm not going to leave this community high and dry, I'll tell you that. I've told you that before because this is my community. I love it. I'm not going to abandon it. But, again, we've got to think about what's going to happen over the next few years as people age out of the system here, our organization, and how we're going to fill them. These are goals that we put in there, and these are going in the strategic plan, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. These are engineering goals. We got some utility department goals that Mike and I put together here, and these are just things that we're trying to keep us reminded and keeping eyes up and looking forward on what's going on. And with that, I don't really have anything else that I want to cover tonight. I'll answer any questions.
Steve, Mike, thank you for your time. I want to tell the council that we certainly have our challenges moving forward, not only with the projects that we're going to be looking at in the future, But as Steve has mentioned, replacing some of these guys that are going to be retiring, and we need to do some hard work and be prepared and not get caught off guard and surprised, because 2 years, 3 years is going to fly by. It's going to fly by. And so
And
now is the
the-
time. And it's going to cost money. We're going to have to find the money somewhere.
Yeah, Mayor, and if I might, having to pay the people more is a definite, but this is a complex deal on how, this is very important. There, there's a complexity to it that, dealing with Steve and Mike, so we got to start working on that. Now they're going to give us some ideas, but we're going to have to implement some stuff.
Now, and you know what, that's going to be our challenge, along with Mike Sims and everyone involved. We're going to be okay, but we need to get to work on it. We need to get to work on it. Steve, thank you so much for your time.
You have anything to add, Mr. Simpson?
Now, was he asleep? Great.
Is he frozen? How did you froze the screen? He went to sleep.
He's frozen.
So at this time,
Ray, he froze asleep. Huh?
at this time, we're going to
he's-
go into executive session.
Yes, sir. No, sir, I'm good.
Are you awake, Ray?
Wait, I have to.
Under the, let me call it up. So, under section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation. Also, section 551.072, deliberations regarding